Caitlin Clark's the new it. If you don't have a long ball, talking about the 26, 30 feet, if you ain't doing the Steph Curry, you ain't got none of that long ball in your game, yeah, you're going to be behind.
When I watch her, two things I like. She's playing much faster.
Yeah.
Much faster. She was playing too slow the first half of the season.
She's phenomenal. I'm going to go on the record and say she's the best female collegiate player ever. The girls in WNBA that done it in spurts, but you know, that game I'm watching y'all in the Final Four, I'm like, damn, like, and I was a hater because, you know, I'm down with she was like, she's not going to hit that shot, and bam, like, damn.
You know, I usually stay out of these conversations, but with Caitlin Clark, I can't stay silent anymore.
When Michael Jordan finally speaks about a player, the basketball world listens. And what he just said about Caitlin Clark has everyone talking. The man who defined greatness just dropped a statement that's sending shockwaves through the WNBA. Before we dive into Jordan's bombshell comments, let's talk about how we got here. Clark didn't just enter the WNBA, she exploded onto the scene like a meteor hitting Earth. Her college career at Iowa was already legendary, but nothing could have prepared the professional league for what was coming. The numbers don't lie. WNBA viewership skyrocketed by over 400% during her rookie season. Arenas that used to be half empty were suddenly selling out. Merchandise sales went through the roof. This wasn't just a good rookie season. This was a complete transformation of an entire sport.
I saw somebody break down the release time, which is pretty much identical to mine. You can't help but watch when she plays, where she's shooting from, the range, the confidence, the flair. Like, she's a performer. It's crazy though, just because her shot is like that. It's at that level. If you really watch, like, her floor game is as impressive. So it's kind of the total package. And her being the French breaking that record, and the amount of attention that she has gained over the course of these last couple years.
The comparisons started early, but when Steph Curry himself breaks down your game, you know you're special. The two-time MVP didn't hold back when analyzing Clark's impact. He pointed out something most people miss. It's not just the range or the quick release that makes her dangerous. It's the complete package. The way she performs under pressure turns games into must-watch entertainment and elevates everyone around her.
Performer. It's crazy though, just because her shot is like that.
Curry spent time analyzing her release mechanics and found they were nearly identical to his own. But he saw something deeper. Clark has that rare gift of making basketball feel like theater. Every shot she takes, every pass she makes, carries this electric energy that transforms casual viewers into die-hard fans. What's crazy is how quickly the basketball world split into two camps. On one side, you had fans and casual observers going absolutely wild for Clark's performances. On the other side, you had established WNBA players and some media members who seemed determined to knock her down a peg. The tension was immediate and obvious. Veterans who had been grinding for years suddenly found themselves in the shadow of a 22-year-old rookie who was pulling in endorsement deals they could only dream of.
I think it's reprehensible what they're allowing some of these players. Anybody that does something flagrant to this young lady for what she's brought to the game should be suspended and fined big time for doing that.
But not everyone was ready to embrace the phenomenon. What followed was a level of hostility that had NBA veterans shaking their heads. Rick Barry didn't mince words when he saw what was happening. The Hall of Famer called it reprehensible and demanded serious consequences for players targeting Clark with unnecessary aggression. Barry's frustration was obvious. He'd seen plenty of rookie hazing in his day, but this felt different. This felt personal and destructive.
That she's bringing for all of them. She bringing, they flying private planes now. They went flying private before she came. They on major networks now. They weren't doing that. See, she remind me of Tiger Woods for golf.
Yes.
George Gervin stepped up too, pointing out the hypocrisy that was impossible to ignore. These same players complaining about Clark were now flying private jets and getting major network coverage because of what she brought to the league. The Iceman compared her impact to Tiger Woods transforming golf, and that's not a comparison thrown around lightly. The dirty plays started almost immediately. Hard fouls that had nothing to do with basketball, cheap shots when referees weren't looking, verbal taunts that crossed lines. What made it worse was how some people tried to justify it as just part of the game. Veterans who should have known better were leading the charge, seemingly forgetting that this rookie was single-handedly bringing more money and attention to their profession than they'd seen in decades. The Olympic team situation became the ultimate test case. When USA Basketball announced their roster for Paris, Clark's name was nowhere to be found. The backlash was immediate and came from unexpected places. Paul Pierce, who had been skeptical of Clark early on, completely flipped his stance. He couldn't understand how you claimed to want to grow the game internationally while keeping your most popular player at home. Pierce's point was simple but devastating. If you want global attention for women's basketball, you put your biggest star on the biggest stage. The decision looked even worse when you considered that some players who made the team weren't even having particularly strong seasons. Even Dwight Howard saw the silver lining that others missed. The former Defensive Player of the Year predicted that the snub would only fuel Clark's fire and give her time to work on her game during the Olympic break. Howard was absolutely right about what happened next. When Clark returned from the break, she looked like a completely different player, stronger, faster, more confident. The rest she got while other players were in Paris seemed to recharge her batteries in a way that paid massive dividends. Then there's the physical aspect that had legends genuinely concerned. This wasn't just competitive basketball anymore. Jeff Teague called out the entire league for mishandling their golden goose. His point was brutally simple. Why would you attack the person who's bringing all this money and attention to your league? It's like biting the hand that feeds you. The former All-Star guard was genuinely frustrated watching Clark get targeted game after game while league officials seemed to turn a blind eye. Charles Barkley went nuclear on the situation. Chuck blasted the petty behavior and pointed out how backwards the whole thing was. These women should be thanking Clark for the private jets, increased salaries, and national television coverage, not trying to knock her down. Barkley's rant was vintage Chuck, unfiltered, brutally honest, and impossible to argue with. He even called out his fellow men, saying he expected that kind of insecurity from dudes, but women should be smarter than that. Shaq's reaction might have been the most telling of all. The Big Diesel admitted he was initially skeptical, even rooting against Clark at first. But after watching her consistently hit impossible shots under pressure, he became a complete believer. When Shaquille O'Neal admits he was wrong about a player and gives them props, you know that player must be something special. Shaq's conversion from hater to supporter happened in real time, and it was beautiful to watch. The generational divide became crystal clear when you looked at who was supporting Clark versus who was tearing her down. Younger fans and NBA legends were mostly in her corner, while some WNBA veterans and certain media personalities seemed threatened by her success. It was fascinating to watch unfold, like seeing basketball history repeat itself in real time. Magic Johnson brought a different perspective entirely, having lived through a similar situation when he and Larry Bird saved the NBA in the 1980s. He recognized the business side. Clark isn't just a player, she's a phenomenon that's lifting the entire league. Magic understood something crucial that others missed. When you have a transcendent talent that brings new eyeballs to your sport, you protect them at all costs. You don't tear them down out of jealousy or resentment. Magic also understood the growing pains, comparing it to his own rookie experience when established stars weren't exactly welcoming. But even Magic admitted the level of animosity Clark faced went way beyond normal rookie hazing. The most telling moment came when Magic drew parallels between Clark's impact and the Magic-Bird rivalry that saved the NBA. He pointed out that both he and Larry weren't the best players when they entered the league, but they became the best through competition and mutual respect. Magic saw that same potential in Clark, but he also saw how the toxic environment could derail everything if it wasn't handled properly. Kevin Garnett offered a different perspective that was both refreshing and concerning. The Big Ticket argued that adversity makes players great, that being targeted is actually a compliment. KG's old-school mentality sees the rough treatment as a rite of passage. But even Garnett seemed to acknowledge that what Clark was facing went beyond normal rookie struggles. When one of the toughest players in NBA history is questioning whether the treatment is too much, you know there's a serious problem. Reggie Miller, Mr. Clutch himself, took a more traditionalist approach. Miller argued that every rookie has to earn their stripes, that Clark should expect resistance from veterans who've been grinding for years. But Miller's perspective felt incomplete. Yes, rookies should face challenges, but there's a difference between earning respect through competition and dealing with targeted harassment designed to break your spirit. Isaiah Thomas brought his executive experience to the conversation, pointing out something others were missing. The controversy around Clark, while ugly, was actually good for business. Controversy creates conversations. Conversations create interest, and interest creates revenue. Thomas wasn't endorsing the behavior, but he was acknowledging the reality that drama sells, even when it shouldn't. Barkley didn't just stop at defending Clark, he went after the media too. Chuck called out commentators and analysts for fueling unnecessary drama instead of celebrating what should have been a feel-good story. His frustration was palpable and honestly understandable. Here's a player bringing unprecedented attention and money to a league that struggled for visibility for decades, and instead of protecting their asset, they're allowing her to get beat up on and off the court. Barkley's media criticism hit different because he's part of that world now, and he was essentially calling out his own colleagues. The really wild part is how some media members seemed personally invested in Clark's failure. Barkley pointed out that certain personalities were going on television and basically slandering a young woman who was just trying to play basketball and help her team win. The personal nature of some attacks went way beyond sports criticism and entered territory that would be unacceptable in any other professional environment. But the moment everyone was waiting for came when Jordan finally broke his silence. MJ's words carried weight that nobody else's could. He made it crystal clear: the WNBA owes Caitlin Clark a debt of gratitude for what she's accomplished. More importantly, he called for changes in how officials handle her games, saying the refs have been unfair and it's time for the league to step up. When the greatest player of all time says you're special and demands better treatment, that's not just praise, that's a mandate. Jordan's statement wasn't just about recognizing talent, it was about respecting what Clark has done for women's basketball and ensuring she gets the protection and appreciation she deserves moving forward. Coming from MJ, these words carry the weight of absolute authority. This is the man who faced his own share of physical punishment in the 1980s and 90s, who understands what it means to be a target because you're great. When he says the treatment has gone too far, everyone should listen. The timing of Jordan's comments couldn't have been more perfect. Clark had just finished a phenomenal second half of the season, leading her team to the playoffs and proving all the doubters wrong. Her numbers post-Olympic break were absolutely insane. The assists, the scoring, the leadership, everything came together in a way that silenced most of her critics. Jordan's endorsement felt like the final stamp of approval from basketball royalty. What makes this whole situation so fascinating is how it mirrors other sports dynasties and breakthrough moments. Every transformative athlete faces resistance from established powers who feel threatened by change. Tiger Woods dealt with it in golf. Serena Williams dealt with it in tennis. LeBron James dealt with it when he entered the NBA. Now Caitlin Clark is dealing with it in the WNBA. But history shows us that true greatness eventually wins out, and all the early resistance just becomes footnotes in a larger success story. The business impact cannot be overstated. Corporate sponsors who never gave the WNBA a second thought are now writing massive checks. Television networks are fighting for broadcasting rights. Merchandise sales are through the roof. Social media engagement has exploded. Clark single-handedly changed the economic landscape of women's professional basketball in less than one season. That's not just athletic achievement. That's cultural impact on a massive scale. Looking ahead, the question isn't whether Clark will continue to dominate. It's whether the WNBA will fully embrace what she represents or continue to allow petty jealousy to poison the well. Jordan's statement feels like a turning point, a moment where the basketball establishment finally said, "Enough is enough." When legends start speaking up this forcefully, change usually follows. And for women's basketball, that change can't come soon enough.